Be done through that on there.
It's 5:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Would you please stand and join Cheyenne in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Would you bow your head? Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight thankful for all that you've done for us, all that you've blessed us. You've blessed the school district, the students, parents, and the faculty. Be with us tonight as we make important decisions about your future. And Lord, we just ask you to be with us as we go. In your name we pray. Amen. Are there any public comments? Nothing up from the public? Okay, it is 5:31. We'll go into executive session.
So what we'll do is we'll go back there, and we have folks here in the audience that we can call back there that will help us if y'all have questions. And then we also have Kristen Savant from Norton Rose Fulbright Lawyer Bond Counsel, who will help us with the legal paperwork when you call a bond. And then of course we've got the Huckabee team that's here every month. And then also Brian Grubbs was in the back down there somewhere with Samco Financial. He can help us with any financial questions we have. And then we have all of our internal people here too. If you have questions, we can call back. Kristen will do our bond ethics training back there as well. Hopefully we won't be too long. We'll come back and then we'll present and kind of go over the summary and decisions, things like that. Thank y'all.
It's 6:59 p.m. 6:59. We'll call the meeting back to order, and Dr. Pollard will give you the results of our executive session.
And I also had two little points of business right before that, but I'll do that as well. So the first thing was missed school days due to inclement weather. So we missed the 3 days in January, 26th, 27th, and 28th. So we had plenty of instructional minutes. Kids don't have to make that up. As a point of business or record-keeping purposes, just to be kosher, I'd like for the board to formally approve us paying the employees for those 3 days that they didn't work. We've done that in years past when they have ICE. It's just a formality. Obviously, they need to get paid even on days when they're not able to come to work. So my recommendation is that the board pay the staff for the 3 instructional days missed due to icy road, but not have our employees make up that time.
Do I hear a motion? Okay, Lloyd, a second. Calvin, any further discussion? All in favor? It passes. Did I go too fast?
No.
Okay.
Charles wasn't here.
The second point of business is from the previous board meeting in January, we need to go ahead and approve those minutes now. We usually do it in consent agenda, but I think Dr. Sanderson needs those minutes for some reports that are coming up due really soon. So I would recommend the board approve the minutes from the January 29th board meeting.
All right, to help Mr. Sanderson, I have Dr. Sanderson. Do I have a motion? Okay, Calvin, a second. All right, Cheyenne, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
All right, now we can get to the synopsis of the bond and what we talked about in closed session. We're thankful for Kristen. We started with a short board training on what you can and can't say, and she can always train the employees as well, but mainly be careful on social media, I think would be a good summary, and also what you say at the post office, the grocery store, the mailbox, you're usually pretty safe. You know, it's when you start using school resources, it's a little bit trickier. So anyway, is that a fair synopsis?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yep.
So then we got the meat and potatoes of the bond, and so I informed the board, you know, that as with the past year and a half or so, we've had this list of items that we've been trying to accomplish. And the list of what we can do, it vacillates because of just cost when you're looking into what all things are going to cost with the current conditions. And so some of the biggies that we've been looking at is getting 6th grade to junior high, building a new field house, building a fine arts section that would get the kids off of Marshall Street and in the classrooms, which is a huge safety concern. Even smaller projects like flipping the press box from the home side to the visitor side, making that the home side. And so we spent the vast majority of our discussion looking at now the crux of the issue with getting 6th grade to junior high, which was a high priority for the board, but the functionality of it. We can do it, but it might not be great. You know, like what Eric and Susie said, you might be buying more problems with that because there might not be enough restroom space, or your hallways might be a little too narrow. Little things like, well, we thought we'd rip out the lockers, but Toby finds there's a 3-inch concrete lip under them. You know, just things like that pop up. You don't know what's going to happen. And so we looked at what was the best combination of things to do to get the best bang for our buck for $26 million. Because the main thing we said was, from the get-go, we don't want to go over $26 million. We don't want to raise the tax rate. So what the board has kind of been mulling over and what we'll act on tonight is this list right here. So basically what the board is feeling or leaning towards, what they'll vote on here shortly, is that we would ask the community, first of all, we're sticking with the $26 million. That was one big question. We don't want to say, well, we'll just ask for 21.5, but then we don't get enough, and it's like, dang, we should have asked for all 26 because we could have done this or that. So in that $26 million, we would get rid of those terrible portable buildings at the junior high. This is an academic thing, and replace with 4 permanent classrooms. Renovate the terrible restroom situation at the junior high. Renovate the auditorium to where they've got good seats and sound and things like that. Add additional student and staff restrooms. Again, restrooms are a reoccurring nightmare at the junior high. They need more, they need better. Another safety issue, build an actual corridor from the junior high to the Mary Bishop Gym. That open air breezeway is not safe, and so that would be a hallway there. Then the big piece, one of the big chunks, the new junior high fine arts. So a reasonably sized band hall and theater classroom and choir, where there's 3 dedicated band areas. They're not sharing that percussion choir room. But also we'll work with Mike to make sure that the square footage is not excessive, or the theater room is not excessively large. Just, you know, we want it to be functional but not over the top. I think Mike put it best. We don't want anything opulent. We want things that are functional. A huge perk in this is you get the expanded parking lot, including the big one by the baseball field. So every time there's a baseball game and everybody's crowded up here and you don't have enough places to park. The other big chunk of this, the new field house with 4 meeting rooms, because that's a biggie for Jose. Again, like the band hall and the theater, we want to make sure that the overall square footage isn't something excessive where people say, well, they built the biggest in the state. We don't want that soundbite. You know, we want it to be big, but we want it to not be excessive or opulent, and making sure that nothing is excessive. With this option, there's a little bit of wiggle room with the money, and so we could go ahead and switch the visitor and home side bleachers at the stadium, and so we could build a small press box on what's visitor and make that home. We said 499 square feet because at 500 you have to build an elevator. We don't want to have to do that, and so 1 meeting room at the junior high. They don't have a meeting room right now. Additional junior high athletic storage. They don't have any place to store their things. The old gym bleachers that are terrible and uncomfortable, we could replace those. And then also with the field house being somewhat close to the high school, a small hallway to get them connected to where they're not walking out in the open air. And then finally, I asked Mike if there was enough wiggle room. We found out today, Toby said, well, the intermediate roof might need $500,000. And so that would be kind of in the area of thought of what we might need if something was there. Now, Mike, this may be pushing it, but just for a point of reference, if there happened to be all that got done and there was $2 million left, they'd want to do the baseball and softball turf. So that would be the next bullet under the list. We thought that might be wishful thinking, but that is what we
want you to pull it off.
I'm sure they can do it.
Yeah.
At the very least, you could get it priced out and see where all this lands, and then if you're not able to do it now, then you have that information in the future.
Yeah. So that adds a little bit of complexity for Kristen, because the ballot language, so with the all of this could go on one thing for the voters, except the stadium, because that's over the press box, over 1,000 seats. But then also the if we were to have enough money, we would like to be able to do turf, but then when the voters have to vote on that, would that have to be separate? It's under 1,000 seating, but what do you think, Kristen?
You're speaking to the baseball, softball, correct?
Yes.
So if you consider that a stadium with less than seating for less than 1,000 or less than 1,000 spectator seating, that meets an exception. If it's a stadium, if you consider, which is really defined by the Attorney General's office as basically a facility that's designed for hosting, athletic competition. Then if it's less than 1,000, it meets a statutory exception, where you can put that in the general proposition, which is what we're calling your Proposition 8.
Okay.
The stadium with the press box, though, that is with spectator seating of greater than 1,000.
Yes, that's correct.
So because any touch of a
Yeah.
special purpose, that would be a separate proposition.
We were prepared already that would be definitely a separate ballot issue. The turf, it really, baseball, softball, that's definitely under 1,000. And it is, it's just a baseball field, softball field where they come to watch the games.
But you'd feel comfortable saying it's a stadium with less than
Yes.
1,000?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that could
Do
fall
y'all
within the general
feel,
proposition.
Ricky, Jose, stadium less than 1,000?
And intermediate needs to, or the language needs to be light enough that intermediate can be added to it, because right now you have junior high and high school.
So if we had, do we need to add the word intermediate in there in case we were to throw a little towards the roof? Or does that,
Or we've seen it get more generic about
yeah.
improvements to district facility.
Yeah.
Oh, roofing needs, yeah. So, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So the way the current ballot language or proposition language is drafted, it's a lot of, the broad lead-in
Yeah.
for any, basically designing, constructing, renovating, and improving school facilities, including renovations and improvements to Gatesville Junior High School, and then the new field house at the Gatesville High School. And so, you've delineated a couple of projects.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to delineate all
No,
projects,
right.
because that falls within the general, proposition
Right.
and gives you a little bit of flexibility, unless you think there are other material ones relative to the two that we've spoken to.
The only one would be if we touch the intermediate roof with that money, do we need to say something about the intermediate?
I mean, again, it falls within the broad language,
Okay.
so unless you think it's such a substantial project, compared to the other two,
I don't think so.
I don't think you would need to delineate it, because you're gonna be telling your voters what the projects are in your voter education materials, so
Right.
it legally fits within the
Okay.
current ballot proposition.
Okay. Okay.
And the voter information material is where you're gonna really dig into these more so than in the election order.
Yeah, okay. What, on the recommendation then, first of all, board, any other questions or comments about any of it? They mulled it over at quite great length, pros and cons and things like that. My recommendation originally, Kristen, was I recommend that the Board of Trustees adopt an order calling a bond election. Do I need to add anything else to that?
Well, the order so the draft order that you have would change, because if we did need to account for the stadium, it would be a separate proposition.
Okay.
Do we have an amount for that estimate at this point? Because you would have, I'm not trying to play lawyer.
Please do.
You'll have the Proposition A that will carry all of those, that will sum to X. And then the Proposition B, which would be the press box, we need to have a number in there for that proposition, not to exceed. It doesn't mean you have to spend up to it, but then I think collectively what you're saying is between A and B,
It
we
will
don't
be-
want to go above 26 million,
Correct.
period.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so legally, the order will need to set out the propositions, and that's what you'll vote on.
So Krista, as Mackenzie is taking notes on what I'm saying here, so I recommend that the Board of Trustees adopt an order calling a bond election for $26 million, as described in this open session.
Well, in the adoption of an order, calling
Do
the
you have
bond
something
election.
I need to read?
Well, we first would want to identify what that dollar amount amendments for
Okay, gotcha.
Proposition B in the language, just to make sure y'all are, because it's approving the ballot
Sure,
language,
right.
and that's what's necessary for tonight's call.
Okay.
So I think
So we estimated less than this, but if we want to be more conservative, I'd
Right.
say $1 million as the not to exceed amount.
$1 million for each.
So you have 25 million Prop A and $1 million Prop B.
Now,
And
thinking
then-
strategically, are people gonna say, my God, $1 million to put the,
And that's not just the press box, that was adding additional seating as well.
1,000 seats, right?
And any sidewalks and infrastructure that goes with that. We were estimating about $730,000 for that, but I was just suggesting maybe increasing that.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if it's a psychological thing, you don't want to go to that
Correct.
million and, put that number lower.
I think
Because if it-
if it,
we don't.
if it appears to be that pricey, we may have a harder time getting that approved.
I'm not trying to muddy the water at all, but alternatively, you go to the voters with a single $26 million Proposition A, and you do everything on that list that you can, because you do have, and I'm not trying to commit your general fund balance whatsoever, but you do have a very healthy general fund balance. So as a alternative, again, you can separate the propositions or ask for 26 million under one, and then potentially use general fund balance for stadium type stuff. But with that said, if you have items that you're paying on as you go out of your general fund on an annual basis, renovating, repairing, constructing, equipping, those can actually be done with bond funds out of Prop A monies, okay? Freeing up any cash that you would use on an ongoing basis to then you dedicate that towards the press box. So,
So right on the ballot, that's what the thing we're most concerned about.
Correct.
So, do we have to designate a dollar amount for each of those, or can we say it's an overall?
you do, if you're gonna have a separate proposition, both propositions have to have a dollar amount.
But you're suggesting we don't have a separate proposition and just do that other part from fund balance? And Leanne, how does that make you feel?
$1 million?
Should have asked her first before sitting in front of me.
That, again, like we talked about also our day-to-day operations, declining enrollment, declining ADA, political spectrum, state and federally, that is very anti-negative public school funding. That gives me great pause. I don't want to jeopardize our, start spending out of the fund balance to where, could we more realistically put, and I don't even know, Shane, I keep looking at you, because can we sell a press box for $700,000?
I mean, it sounds better than $1 million,
Yeah.
More than
I think,
And the amount of seating would, also influence what that total amount is.
So
if
you could run the bond with A and then put the proposition for the second one. If the proposition for the second one failed, it just failed. And then you could go back to the top one if you needed to and find some money in fund balance. So you put it out there, see if the public will go for it. If they don't, then we can find the money in fund balance to do it.
But you could do a combination too, where you do a lower amount as a bond proposition and say, and we're gonna put a little bit of money from fund balance in there to cover the rest.
Now, how do you feel about this list?
So the list that was up here earlier looks good. The one caveat is when we make that connection from the field house to the main high school building, it affects a parking lot and a drive there. So we're going to have to essentially kind of recreate that elsewhere on the campus to recapture that parking and that access drive. So that's going to be a fairly expensive piece of that, just to get that corridor connection. And so the thing that could potentially impact is how much money you have left for the roofing and HVAC at the intermediate campus.
So Ricky, if it came down to it, cutting back something in the field house, would you rather cut the corridor if you had to?
the corridor or?
The connection to the building.
Leave the field house as it's designed,
Would that
which
make
looked
the
really
field house-
good.
Would that make the field house its own? Have to vote on that separately
No.
too?
No.
Still would not?
I think, Ricky, what they're asking, I can probably answer for you, is that you would prefer the field house the way it is and nix the hallway.
A hallway is what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
He's talking about the hallway is very desirable but very expensive.
Yeah.
Not because of the hallway, but because of all the infrastructure
Parking.
that we relocate
Yeah.
to get that.
Yes, sir.
Coach, what do you?
I think right now with the adjustments that I sent in an email, I think it's extremely functional. And what I've told everyone is whenever I retire here in 20 years, or God forbid, lose too many games, get fired, I want to make sure that I pass the baton to a person knowing that for the next 50 to 70 years, it's in good hands. So if that means we nix the corridor, then I'm okay with that. If we get those 2 additional meeting rooms, then we're reducing our requirement to go into the schoolhouse to borrow rooms to watch film. And we have a centralized area for numerous athletic spaces. So I would say nix the corridor.
So that would be an option if we need to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a lot of department heads here and principals. Does anyone else have something that they want to tell the board or add about this list? What made the cut, didn't make the cut, or do y'all feel good about this? Y'all are the people that will be living this day to day.
Yeah. Speak up if you need to.
Dr. Pollard, we're talking, I think a lot of our baseball, softball parents and families would appreciate a little love over there. I think just kind of throw them a bone here that, hey, we're gonna do something here. I think
And that could be a big voting block.
Yes, I think it would get a lot of people out to vote yes for all of this. That's one place where we haven't spent a lot of money on.
Yeah.
And we're sure working on that. We've made some improvements, but I think the baseball, softball deal, just, and the board's attention to that is a big deal. To get a lot of voters out to help pass this thing, the entirety.
Because the press box is so iffy, do y'all want to pivot? And Mike, this will be where you'll have to come in on the cost. If we nixed the press box venture and the hallway connecting the field house to the high school, does that free up $2 million in order to build a softball and baseball turf? And or would the board even want us to go down that route? Because that's pivoting from what we kind of talked about in the.
Isn't the football field getting brand new turf this summer?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah. I'm just wondering, they get brand new turf and a brand new press box while the softball and baseball field don't get anything. That puts a little question on that.
And I think holistically for all the programs, as a head football coach, I'd be okay shifting away from expansion of one side, the press box moving over to get turf on those other facilities. I think that'd be much more holistic towards all programs across GISD. Just my 2 cents.
Team player, good job.
Would that nix the seating as well, like when just the whole home side moving and go away completely?
I think that would go away completely then. To me, that's tricky on the ballot because if we have to say it's like 700,000 or $1 million, I don't know. I think people will look at that number, this is just me talking, and think, my God, that's expensive to just do the bleachers and the press box. And then it might sour them on the whole thing. Of course, there are a lot of people that would be there for it, but I think itemizing it is where it gets tricky. Because then if you have to itemize it out, people are like, well, man, that sure does seem expensive.
I'm confused.
Ricky, how many people does the home stands seat?
Currently, about 26 to 2,800.
And if we added this to the other side, how many would that seat?
It would be, you're pretty close to the same amount.
Yeah, probably, be about 2,800 on each side,
Well, we're at the point now where we can barely
fit in the
get the
stand.
seating for the, since, so it might be time to just abandon that idea because you're not adding that many more seats. You're not gonna have any more seats on the visiting side, even if you do all these additions than you do on, the home side will be the same size as the visiting side. And go with the baseball and
They need something else.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to
I'm
delete.
just, I'm not, we don't have do I hear nodding heads, or do you see nodding heads? or-
Yes.
And I
Okay.
hear our coach saying that that would be fine.
For me, my voice, I think it's more holistic if we shift away from that and address the needs of
So
someone.
you'd rather see turf than sitting on the other side of the stadium?
Yes, sir.
What do you think, Ricky? Same?
I just look at it from, I think, getting the voting block from baseball and softball, because that's, I mean, our high school programs, our youth programs, I think there are a lot of people kind of watching right now to see if we're gonna do something towards that. I think making a gesture towards those two facilities would help pass the entirety of this law.
Now the turf, baseball and softball turf, I guess estimate, is that just the field? Or is that also like anything around the field?
So that was initially just the field, so wouldn't be new fencing or bleachers or
Okay.
concessions or
No,
anything
no
like that.
shade on the bleachers or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay.
Just start.
Is basically that cost accounts for, they kind of excavate that material, they put a drainage system under there, and then they layer that up and put the
Okay.
turf on top. So
I do want to say that the board very carefully talked about grade level configurations. And there are a lot of different ideas on the board about what would be best in terms of how we organized our grade levels. And there's some ideas that came up that were very innovative and pretty neat. And I just want the public to know that we're not abandoning the idea of how we want to position grade levels. That's something that is not here. So of course we're saying that moving 6th grade to junior high school is off the board for now, but moving kids around in various configurations is not off the board, because we feel that there's some areas where things could be improved if we look at the whole thing pre-K through 12. So that's not off the board.
So by taking the press
It's
box.
just off the bond issue.
Yes. By taking the press box off of the list, now we just need one ballot entry. Because the softball and baseball turf fit the definition of a stadium under 1,000 seats. So this would be the new list then.
Dr. Pollard, you were asking me earlier about, does this leave enough room to get the turf in there? And the only thing I want to just voice is that because the roofing and the HVAC just came up tonight, we
Correct.
haven't had a chance to evaluate the conditions. We don't really know what that scope of work is going to be or how expensive it is. So what I would say is, I think you could definitely address some of those needs. Whether that covers all of the things that you need to do there, that'll be seen later. But we will get our roofing consultant to come out, assess the roof, really get a good understanding of what needs to be done there, get our mechanical engineer to evaluate the mechanical systems. So I think that's to be determined, the exact extent of how much that can be included.
That's reasonable, because it's sight unseen, just us throwing it out there at you tonight, so.
And as far as stadium expansion and press box, the board will be looking very carefully at how we might can use some local money for that. If we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. You can't ask this community for more than they can afford. So one thing that was absolutely off the table, non-negotiable, was asking for any kind of tax raise. Oh no.
So the new list then, we've nixed that hallway because it's a little bit of an expense that really maybe you don't get as much benefit out of it, and nixing the press box. And in return then, you've got softball and baseball turf. And then the one thing on the list that we could all agree is that the roofing needs an intermediate in any HVAC. That's iffy. If we've got some money left over, it would go towards that. But the way it's worded, it encapsulates that too, because it's facilities.
Right, so my only question is, so the action item is to approve the order calling the bond election that you have before you. I believe we sent a copy of that. My only question is, with the baseball, softball, did you want to delineate that as one of the projects so it'll appear on the ballot? It sounds like.
And you're saying we don't really have to?
You don't have to. No, I just wanted to make sure before you voted on it.
Yes,
if you
because
wanted
Ricky's
to.
told us that would
You bring more voters.
draw a big bunch of voters.
So strategically, do you think that draws more or irritates more? Anybody have a strong opinion?
I have an opinion.
Okay, Tracy?
Athletics does perform lower across the state polls. We can pass it, but it's gonna always be 1 or 2 percentage points under a general Prop A type of normal. I know it's not separate, but there could be people who just don't want their taxpayer dollars to go towards athletics. That they feel like that's extra, I don't pay for those people's kids, you know, that kind of mentality. So I would recommend not putting it on there, but being sure to communicate with those families directly that are interested in making sure that that's a part of it. And it's still gonna be in all the materials, it's still gonna be on all the fact sheets, it's still gonna be on the website, not hidden, but maybe if you have uninformed people showing up at the polls and all they read is the ballot language, they probably don't have a vested interest in baseball, softball anyway.
I just don't want anybody walking in here saying that we are not transparent. I want everybody to know exactly what we're up against here and what we're for.
So Tracy, it's not necessarily inherently a bad thing if
No.
you've listed it.
No.
It's just statistically across the state, it can sometimes hamper things
No.
if you don't sell it correctly.
And I,
Don't sell anything.
I hear
Don't
what
sell
you,
anything.
Right, market,
I-
inform.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying we have to, but I do know Gatesville is a big community on baseball. I mean, that's
You know
the
your community
biggest.
best.
That's the sport, but
That is the
sometimes
sport.
that might be a little overkill. Like, is that necessary, or can we just water the grass?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Right.
Well,
Because
the other
you're
thing
the
is
ones that,
we've talked in the community about, we were gonna get to move 6th grade over, and so for my parents, that was kind of a big thing, because now we finally have that junior high schedule functioning at junior high. So when they see junior high, that move is off, and now, but we're doing softball and baseball. It really looks like athletics is taking precedence over education, the academic piece, of getting those kids over so that they're functioning with the same schedule as their peers.
So you think we shouldn't put it out there?
Maybe at that point, it looks like we're picking and choosing what we put in there. Maybe we go back to the default of it just says facilities.
Right.
Student programs or something along those lines?
I don't know
Facilities
that
for
would be
student
okay.
activities?
I'm not sure of that one. I guess the way, just from a legal perspective, when you have a broad language, you know, you have the flexibility as a board, so costs come in higher, you have the flexibility. When you delineate the projects, you're starting to say, you know, we're promising these projects. So,
right.
you know, this is your list, yes, communicate it to your voters. You're not delineating all the projects, you know. And so it just allows you a little bit more flexibility if things change, if circumstances change, and maybe you don't have enough money to do the baseball, softball. If you delineate it, you're really promising that that would be, you know, one of the top 3 priorities if you're delineating the projects.
So maybe it's getting too complex and too, so maybe we just we nix what's in the parentheses. Is that how it's worded right now? When we go into-
Right now, it's worded, I believe, the way that, you know, we have the broad lead in, we say including renovations and improvements to Gatesville Junior High School and a new field house at Gatesville High School. So those are the 2 delineated projects currently. Yeah,
Can you-
this is,
Will you
it's
put that
actually
on the
your-
board thing?
Yes.
I have it pulled up, but can I do that?
Do you have it? Yes.
Do you have the language?
I would say do not add it in as a separate
Yeah.
wording, because,
It just,
like she said, you're gonna have people that
I'll show you
are
the
gonna
back.
show up to vote for that, and then we can't do it, and then they're gonna be really upset.
Here's the ballot language that's currently before y'all without any changes.
If they vote for it.
I can't take it from you, I thought I could.
where is it found?
It is, are you on C? So scroll down to your attachments. On the main page there, yes, that order.
Right.
It's on down to exhibit, so it's kind of near the end.
So if you go to section 5, it'll show you the ballot language. Section 1 has the legal proposition, which is the contract for the voters, but it has a lot more information. That's the legal proposition, and then the ballot is in section 5, if you go up.
Have I gone too far?
Yes, sir. Right there.
Okay, so right here, this area right here, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the issuance of $26 million of bonds by the Gatesville Independent School District for school facilities, including renovations and improvements to Gatesville Junior High and new field house. So what you're saying then, Krista, is we could just say, we could nix this, correct?
Yes, you could decide just to say for school facilities, and that leaves the board with, you know,
So
flexibility.
the ballot would then read the issuance of $26 million of bonds by the Gatesville Independent School District for facilities and the levying of tax and payment of the principal and interest of the bonds.
If you don't want to delineate certain.
Correct. So then we would just eliminate what's highlighted right there. We would eliminate the delineation of including renovations and improvements to Gatesville Junior High and new field house. We just mix it. Y'all are okay with that? Because it seems like we're going down this rabbit hole. We're trying to list all the stuff we think's big and important, and maybe it's just getting too convoluted.
Yeah.
Are y'all okay with that?
Sort of.
I know it's a difficult balancing act between the transparency and getting too wordy and down this, yeah.
Dr. Pollard, so if it's listed, if you're taking out that, when it's listed in all the promotional items and stuff, will it list the improvements on those?
Yes.
So they'll see it somewhere.
Because then you can go into more, like, here we're not listing, well, there's a hallway connecting the Mary Bishop gym to the junior high. Well, you don't want to get in the weeds of all that. Now, I can see the benefit of maybe putting the big 2 or 3, but it's just, it's difficult, yeah.
And most, not all, but most districts will choose the more general ballot language,
Okay.
knowing that in all of your voter information material, whether it's put out, you know, handouts,
Yeah.
websites, that's when you really specify.
Great detail.
26 million, no tax rate increase, and here's the list of the school facilities.
Right.
But the ballot language can only be modified to some degree.
Yeah.
You don't want a full-page ballot
Right.
where you're identifying everything. This gives you the full flexibility to knock out as many of those projects, and depending on what the bids and the cost come in, maybe even some more.
Yeah.
So,
I guess another advantage is if you go into too much detail and you ran out of money, and then it's like, well, I thought you were gonna, on the ballot box, you said you were gonna do this, and now you can't do that, and. Okay.
Is there any wording that would make someone with no knowledge of, like, hasn't talked to any of us or heard anything about it, but is there any wording that would make someone with no knowledge vote for it and not against it? I'm just saying, is there anything you can add to it where they go, oh, that's cool, yes.
Yeah.
You know, is there any wording that you could add to that to just, so if I didn't know anything about it, oh yeah, that sounds good, I'll do that. Or, no way, I ain't doing that. I'm just asking, is there any wording that could do that for you?
But in there somewhere there will be.
Like, is there something, like, do we mention that we're remodeling the junior high? Because I think that everybody in Gatesville went through that school and they probably know what it
Just put
feels
Go
like
Hornets
at
at the
this
bottom.
point.
Just put Go Hornets at the bottom.
There you go.
Doing what's best
Before we
for
find
kids.
every Put it up there.
What if
I'm
we
just
just deleted the portion highlighted there, so you're giving, like Lloyd saying, a little bit more description. You're including renovations and improvements to Gatesville Junior High and Gatesville High School. Gatesville High School meaning the field house and the softball, baseball turf. Or is that still too, what do you?
That would make me vote for it if I knew nothing about it, because if you don't know what you're spending the money on, then people aren't really willing to just go for it, you know? But if you have a little bit of knowledge of
Like at least
something
which
good that
campuses
you're
are
doing
you-
with the money, then,
Yeah.
then I think that they would be more willing to vote for it if they thought that they were getting something updated or.
Right.
I think that's something that everyone understands.
Yeah. So at least in this language, it's telling you what 2 campuses it's impacting, the junior high and the high school. And you're not going into too much, you're being honest that it's no longer touching intermediate, and but you're not going into great detail as far as, well, what all are you doing at the junior high and high school? That would be left for the voter information that we gotta get out and inform them.
But it's okay that it might touch the intermediate if we do the roof?
Yes.
I mean, okay.
Should we go ahead and add intermediate, junior high, and high school?
You have to.
Then you have to. And like Mike said, that might be iffy if you run out of money.
Right, but you could always just reserve at least a small amount to be able to do some minimal work there. You
Yeah.
know, you're not promising exactly
What?
what.
It might
is in
be,
this.
we might have enough leftover money to do one HVAC unit as opposed to the whole roof and the whole, you know.
Or some patching on the roof or something.
Is that too misleading where they're gonna think, well, I thought that meant sixth grade?
I think they're gonna think that it's sixth grade. I don't think they're gonna look at Gatesville Intermediate and think, I bet that's the roof and the
Yeah.
ACs.
Right.
They're not gonna think that.
Right.
So,
I
but
don't
I
wanna
also
be-
think if they see the roof getting redone and ACs being put up, they're gonna think, I bet they needed that to be taken care of. No one's
Yeah.
gonna say,
Right.
is that bond money? They're gonna think that's normal maintenance.
Yeah.
You know, in my opinion, people are gonna think it's just taking care of business.
Right. Whatever we do, we don't want to be misleading, and we don't want to do anything that's,
Can you just add, and other campuses?
Well, I was wondering if you could say, improvements to Gatesville Junior High and or improvements made to, but not limited to Gatesville, or something like that, like to these two schools, but not limited to them only, or something like that.
I don't think the Attorney General doesn't like but limited to language usually. I mean, it's just, because again, it's just including as, you know, identifying what's in the broader language. And just, I mean, we could
I don't
probably
know
do
what I'm
it,
talking
but.
about, I'm
they-
supposed to know an idea.
Yeah, no, it's a
I'm
great idea.
trying to get a new roof and AC on there.
Yeah.
No, I had the same one.
Oh.
Including but not
Tell
limited
us what
to
to say.
improve renovations and improvements.
We don't want to.
Including but not limited to,
Renovations and improvements.
okay.
or do we just leave it the way it is?
We've seen some say priority given to.
I mean, that's not allowed. I mean, like, that's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah. Do y'all want to just leave it the way it is?
Do you want to do that?
Are y'all good with that?
I am.
Which
I don't
way
see
it
what's
is,
wrong with it.
we've been.
You tell us what it says. This will be how it's written on the,
Yeah.
on
I mean,
the
that's what we told the people.
ballot.
Yeah, that's
Like
what
we
we
told,
did.
I mean, well, I'm also told them the sixth grade was moving, but.
Well, now you're designating field house at Gatesville High School, but you're also talking a lot about the baseball softball turf. So now you're designating one project at the high school, but not
Not the other one.
other projects at the high school.
So you don't care for that?
Legally, is that a problem?
I don't think it's legal.
Okay, I didn't, okay. No, then I wouldn't worry about it. It's not legal if we're not putting it in trouble.
So maybe we just go back to the broad definition. And then it's up to us to inform the voters on what all. I don't think we're under some
With the
broad.
way things keep changing, we better be as broad as we can.
Yeah,
Well, that does allow the board to have that flexibility to accommodate change in circumstances. In your voter education materials, you'll list out the projects and put these are the proposed projects, because there are sometimes changes in circumstances.
so then we will nix this area highlighted in blue, and it will just read the issuance of 26 million of bonds by the Gatesville Independent School District for school facilities and the levying of tax in payment of the principal and interest of the bonds. Legally kosher?
Yes, and then we'll make the corresponding change in the legal proposition, which I can do based on your motions to adopt the order as revised, or just to adopt the order
Okay.
with this change.
All right, we have a motion that's stated. Do I hear a motion to accept? Okay, Calvin, do I have a second? Okay, Lloyd, any further discussion? So we're voting to accept what we see on the blackboard here. All in favor? Anybody opposed?
And Mackenzie, were you able to capture that? I know we've vacillated back and forth. What should Mackenzie have written in her notes?
Whatever's right there.
So you're just copying that down?
I got it, everything but the purple.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay.
Anything else on the agenda?
That was it.
Okay, it is 7:42. What do you have, 7:42? We are adjourned.